Hey friends, JB back with Cyber Christ and Country, and we've got a few little articles we're going to take a look at today having to do with some of those topics. You remember Cyber Christ and Country? We're talking about the cyber. You are in the cyber age, okay? Does that make sense to you? That means it's the point where we can no longer really survive without the type of technology that we have. Most people don't know how to start a fire. How would they actually survive if they had to go hunt out in the woods? Is there any woods anymore even to hunt in? So it's those kinds of things that bring us to that cyber age when we can no longer function. The majority of us in a society that would not have these technical doodads and gizmos. All right, I love technology myself, but I tell you what, when the lights go out, JB knows how to start a fire, and I can get her done. All right, look what's going on now. We have Zuckerberger's group. What's that? Facebook, huh? This guy is the face of Facebook. So, Salesforce.com, for those people who are not in the business world, Salesforce is a huge, huge company that helps to manage sales and customer relationships for a lot of the big players. If you're in sales upwards of $1 million, chances are you've got Salesforce that you're relying on. And so if you haven't heard about it, and that's its significance. But what's more significant today is that Mark Benioff, I think that's how you say his name, he says this. He says Facebook is the new cigarettes. It's not good for you. Boom. Can you imagine someone saying that if that was your company? I mean, the tagline just is sticky. Do you see what I mean? You cannot deny this. Facebook is the new cigarettes. It's not good for you. And what's he saying here? In the article, what he's saying is that Facebook is essentially so addictive and such a time drain, a time sink, if you will, that you are risking your health. And we don't even know what the ramifications are by staring at content that people are posting up. Uh, little foxes chasing cats. I mean, I don't know. Whatever it is. I tell you what, the other day it was supper time. Had the boys sitting in front of the TV. We usually watch like a Christian news program, okay? And the program ended after about 20 minutes. And I said, well, let me put Facebook on in one of those little videos. You should see. We were all transfixed for, I bet you, about a half an hour. Just funny thing after funny thing. And I look at my watch and I realize that, an hour out of my life has gone away and I was totally oblivious to it. And I'm like, whoa, time, I mean, and then what you do is because you're casting this thing, right? You're casting some of these videos to your smart TV. And if you don't know a smart TV, that's a way to use your phone, and basically you press a button, and if your TV is connected to your network, it will show that video on your TV instead of your phone or your computer. And so what I realized, what happened is I actually clicked the off button, the TV goes off, and there's all this enthusiasm and fun in the air as we're watching, the chicken chase the cat or whatever the heck. And a lot of sometimes there's mood music or thrilling music that sort of has a crescendo. All right, so imagine we're all watching this TV, and then I press the power button on the TV. There's a way to press the power buttons too. So you press the power button after a half an hour has blown by of my life, and all of a sudden the whole room goes dark. Okay, I mean not dark, dark, but like the TV goes off, and all of a sudden there's like a looming cloud over. Everyone's looking around like, what's going on? It's so quiet. You know, well, what do we do now? And it's like, hey, we live, we don't sit here and stare at things all day long. And that's why when this guy says Facebook is the new cigarettes, it's not good for you, bang, that immediately makes an impact. That is immediately sticky. Sticky means like something that is hard to shake. This tagline from Facebook: Facebook is the new cigarettes, it's not good for you. And then, of course, they find a picture of Zuckerberg here who looks, ashamed, as if he's been caught watching something he shouldn't have been watching on Facebook, and it's like, this guy might have been sneezing for all we know. The picture's not really, how they are. They'll snap a picture of you and make it look really bad with a tagline. But nonetheless, it's a bit comical. Okay, well, that's interesting. We're going to see where that shakes out. And he really is starting to talk about government crackdown because he wants to sort of, just like the government regulated cigarettes, which were not good for you in a physical health, psychological health, the Facebook isn't good for you, is what the assertion is. I would say that there's some wisdom in that statement. Many of us are wasting a lot of time, even if you jump on Facebook, and I guarantee that it's a 10-minute commitment at any given point. So let's just say you're starting from square one, and you're like, oh, let me check on Facebook, see what's going on. Who's my family? Who's posting things? Is there anything in the news, etc.? By the time you start and get off, at minimum, it's got to be about 10, 15 minutes. All right. And that's just because you're scrolling things or before you read a couple things. Maybe it's good. A lot of times it's noise, and a lot of times it can be distracting. I spent one day, someone had something about it's sort of like a meme. A meme is sort of like a picture with a few words thrown on it, and it's trying to kind of like make a quick tagline. One of my Christian, let's just say, friends online had posted like a frivolous meme that discussed how we would do better to apologize rather than lose a friendship. And which for me, as a person in apologetics and a person who's trying to adhere to the word, disingenuously apologizing to people as a way to keep friendship would be a lie. And I sort of made some offhand comments. Before you knew it, back and forth, because this person took it a little bit personal. Back and forth, the event probably took up about half hour to hour of my time, and then on top of that, there was times where I was sort of thinking a little bit more about it than really I should. So what's the net effect? Well, there's some benefits to doing that because I can build up my wherewithal. I can build up my strength as an apologist simply by finding these things out there and putting some biblical arguments against them, or logical arguments. I mean, logic comes from God anyway. So a lot of times dispelling things because they are false, or essentially, the logic doesn't hold water, it's a fallacy, is as just as apologetic in nature as quoting the Bible in many instances. So that there could be strengths and there could be weaknesses. Though if you're trying to do A, though, and Facebook is B, you're trying to do A, Facebook is B, you often find if B doesn't always intersect with A. So you have to make conscious efforts to use whatever it is. Yeah. So, equating them to cigarettes, I get it. Um, but a little different, and I think could be even more dangerous depending. A lot of people's time, if you add up the time that they spend on Facebook throughout their whole life, okay, add up that time, see how rewarding that is, how beneficial. If it's dead time, okay, let's say that over the course of 50 years, a person ends up spending 10 years of their life on Facebook with no significant impact of productivity. Is that better than maybe someone dying 5 years early from cigarettes? I don't know. we have to kind of think about those things, though. So those are some concerns, and I tell you what, these people, the way they've been censoring conservative and Christian values, they're already sort of got one foot on a banana peel and another foot on antitrust lawsuits. Them, Twitter, and all the rest, right? So let's see what happens there. Keep that in mind when you're using Facebook. Second, we've got Amazon's got a big deal out in New York, okay? And according to them, they're going to pay Amazon $44,000 for each particular position that that Amazon, let's see, that Amazon seems to hire out there in New York in the Queens area. Um, what's kind of neat about this, it's like the government starting to play the businessman, okay, and starting to make some business deals. That's good and bad. On the one hand, it's good and bad. It becomes sort of like a dark star, a black hole of tax regulation, what people intended taxes to be. It's kind of like, we have all these tax laws. Why don't they have Amazon abide by the tax laws that people have so feverishly voted for and put in place over all these years? Instead, what they do is they say, well, this is a good situation for New York. Let's carve out an exception, a dark star, if you will. Like a dark star is sort of the antithesis of light. So, if all the stuff that New York, all the tax laws have been good, have been a light, then now they're kind of carving out a dark part for Amazon to sort of possibly bring more money into the area or bring more talent. It might be a synergistic effect. I'm not a big fan uh, of let of states and federal people giving all these special deals. They should make them special for everybody. They should, all for one, one for all. But nonetheless, New York is having sort of a new headquarters. They're hedging their bets, of course, because they're going to have another headquarters, sort of like a side chain headquarters in the Virginia area, which is not far. If you're not from the East Coast, they're sort of like a stone's throw from each other. All these little states and areas up there by New York. So they're going to have that in Virginia, and I think even a smaller office somewhere in the middle. I want to say St. Louis or Kansas City. I can't remember, but there's going to be something out there in the middle, very small. And this is big. It's a big company. They're doing a lot of business. They weren't taxed for such a long time that they've literally trained most of America to use them, and they've gotten so good at their service. They've improved service in such a degree that their inventory system, their ability to deliver and to manage the supply chain, including the logistics of shipping and getting things to your door, is second to none. Yet, at the cost of a lot of companies like Sears or Roebuck imploding, a lot of companies like that. Okay. So, be aware that, there's good things and bad things that can happen when you bring in big players like this who have no oversight. I mean, let's face it, Amazon came in at a time when internet was booming so fast that the legislation was coming to a gridlock on just about any issue that was of merit. Okay, that means that the Republicans and Democrats and any independents could never ever come to an agreement on things that were really worthy and clear and understood. But the internet technology, the cyber age that we're in right now, the cyber technology rather, that basically was so fast in sweeping that they basically changed the economic structure of the country forever. So unless someone were to step in, and now the gridlock is so tight in Washington that doubtful that anyone will ever be able to step in and to sort of either break up Amazon or slow them down using some taxes. And let's face it, people are needy. They want doodads and they have desires. And so when they can get things cheaper on Amazon, They think that's a good thing, and so there would be a lot of public animosity to putting a tax on Amazon right now, and a politician wouldn't really feel good about doing that because they feel like they wouldn't get elected. Now, let's move on. That's an interesting angle, the Amazon deal. We'll see where that develops. We'll keep eyes on that. The other deal is that the Guardian is posting that fake fingerprints can imitate real ones in biometric systems. Okay, so we don't yet have what are those printers called that will print out, um, they'll print out devices, they'll print out, they're digital printers of sorts that will actually make things. We're not saying today that they have printers that's going to print out fake fingerprints, but they're already able to get the fingerprint duplication and hacking the fingerprint database 1 in 5. That means that out of one of every 5 fingerprints is going to be valid, okay? And that will be a positive hit. That means when you have authentication systems that take fingerprints, if they're using technology like this, people can start to hack something that they thought was non-reputable, meaning that most people figure that since it's your fingerprint, there's no way to replicate that because it's tied to you, something you have, and something that you use to authenticate, such as a fingerprint, seems like no one could replicate it. Well, guess what? This group has essentially hacked that because partly because a lot of fingerprinting databases, they'll authenticate if only a partial part of the fingerprint is okay. So that's already a problem. So as they harden that, you'll have other computers that even make these fake fingerprints even stronger. Okay, researchers have used a neutral network to generate artificial fingerprints that work as a master key for biometric identification systems, and prove fake fingerprints can be created. Well, I knew that was coming. I mean, the other day before this started, I don't know when this story really broke, but the other day I just figured that, at the end of the day, essentially all someone needs to do is get a printer that can print out silicone, a silicone printer of sorts. And then next, you just bottle up human oil, like skin oil, and then you dip that silicone fingerprint. Go ahead and put it all over the place at a murder scene, and pretty much you can start blaming other people's for the murders that you do, or the bank robbers, or whatever. I mean, it's getting to be so weird these days that you wonder if the fingerprint is going to be a lasting authentication piece. Maybe there will be sort of like an instantaneous DNA validation in the future versus a fingerprint. Once it's hackable, once this technology of the past has been breached, meaning that they can hack it, or it's no longer functions as designed, it only becomes a small data point in evidence. It's not becoming the overwhelming evidence. You've noticed now that the crime scenes, they're looking for blood and DNA, and fingerprints are not as significant, but it still adds to the case. It's still a piece of the puzzle. What do we have next? Which is an interesting story. I was watching CBN just yesterday, and they were talking about 40 years of Operation Blessing. Operation Blessing sounds really great. It's the tagline doesn't really give me a whole lot of context, but at the end of the day, it's so simple that it's been so effective. And over 40 years, they've helped fed like 200 million people, food during famine, clean water for those without, medical care for the sick, and so much more. Pat Robertson was, he's getting old, and I still like to watch him because he doesn't mind speaking his mind. Actually, he's not afraid to speak his mind, and I think that that's refreshing. A lot of people of faith these days tap dance around the common sense that the Lord has given us, even, or just the pure moral framework that the Lord has given us, and they tap dance around. Oh, geez, I can't talk about that because that may offend someone. It may offend my brother. Pat Robertson seems to break free of that. And he can even tell it sometimes some of his hosts are kind of like, well, I'm not sure about that, Pat. And they're trying to give him some grace. But, sometimes he's not always perfect. He makes mistakes, but he does a great job. And apparently, he was reading a passage in Isaiah about simply feeding people 40 years ago. And there it started. And it seems to be an effective outreach program, an effective way to help people as God would have us to do. And some people were talking about how it's uh, it's not even as much leaning on the evangelical thing of preaching the gospel necessarily, but it's more about being a light. Um, so it's done through example, and it's not necessarily a tactic to preach the gospel. I don't know if that's entirely true. That was just sort of part of the story that I saw. But you have to think that, if they're going to reach people, if they miss the opportunity to preach the gospel, we sure hope God uses this in a positive way. And it seems to be such an effective program. We just continue to pray that these people keep working this program and keep the momentum going. And, like they say, when momentum happens, when you get momentum, you need to put your foot on the gas even harder. So hopefully they do that, and hopefully we ask people to continue to bless them. If you feel that you would like to give to this particular site, I think it's ob.org. OperationBlessing.org stands for ob.org. That's Oscar Bravo. The first letter's O. The second letter is B as in Bravo, and that's a .org. So you should be able to find it there. Well, my friends, this is the conclusion of Cyber Christ and Country for today. We'll tune back in the next time. We're going to try to do these a little bit more seamlessly. I've been trying to pray over the nature, format, and frequency of these particular videos. We busted out one today, so that's a little bit longer than I expected, but there were some important topics here, and we're getting some traction again. So maybe look forward to maybe a shorter format. If you think it should be longer, if you would like to hear this sort of discussion on cyber, the technology, Christ, our Christ, Savior, Jesus Christ, and the politics surrounding that. If you feel that this is of value to you, I need to know about it. You need to like it, possibly share it, give some feedback. Because if this is something that is a blessing to you and something that you would like to see, let's say 3 or 4 hours a day, there's a way that I can monetize this and support such a ministry like that. And this could lead into some other things as well. So if that's the case for you, let me know, post it. You can say a like, you can give me some feedback independently, what have you. But reach out and let me know what your thoughts are. And if it's just something that, hey, look, it's kind of neat, it's a spin that I've never seen, but you may watch it, but it's not necessarily something that you feel would be worthy of 2, 3 hours of programming. Well, that's good too. Let me know that. We can keep it short and to the point, and sometimes just a digest of some of the events is more meaningful in the world that we live in. The digital age is so fast, a lot of people can only accept the digest. But if you'd like a little bit more, please let me know. God bless you guys. I really appreciate everyone who's watching and listening. Take good care.